So what if the top offensive tackles and corners come off the board for the Packers? What if the worst case scenario happens? Well, the Packers have answers. We'll dig into them on today's show.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200. If your bet wins, visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Yesterday, we went through a scenario on a mock draft Monday where I went, okay, what if? And it was a trade down scenario. And it was what if all of the top offensive tackles and corners go. And in my actual mock draft, that had not been the case. Tyler Guyton was still on the board, so I could have taken Tyler Guyton. Let's just rewind a second and go back and the positions at the top of the draft that history says, if you want good players here, you have to take them early. Tackle, quarterback, pass rusher, corner. It's the premium positions. And the other positions, which happen to be areas of need for the Packers, center, guard, running back, linebacker, and safety. You don't spend first round draft capital on if you can avoid it, because history says the NFL is really bad at deciding who the good players are. You should have less confidence in your evaluations of those players than the players at the premium positions. That is what history tells us. The Packers historically have not drafted certain positions in the first round. They didn't take a linebacker for a long time until they took Quay Walker. They hadn't taken a safety for a long time until they took Clinton Dix in 2014 and then Darnell Savage in 2019. They haven't taken a guard since 1997. So this sets up an interesting way to look at the first round, because I went through it. And after that mock draft experiment, I thought, okay, well, what will the options be for the Packers? Are there ones that actually make sense? Is a trade up actually the move here? Or is a trade down actually the move here? We're going to go through some of those scenarios. I know we've talked about, like, hey, if they want to trade up, these are the options. If they want to trade down, these are the options. But how likely is it they just get shut out? That's where we want to start. So I went to the Athletic Consensus Board. Remember, not Dane Brugler, the athletics evaluator. No, this is the Consensus Board. So this is based on boards from around the internet. And I looked at all the players. So let's say the true offensive tackles, these are the guys that are going to be gone. Joe Olufashanu, Amarius Mims, J.C. Latham. They're going to be gone. Let's just say there's two borderline guys who might be tackles, might be guards, might be centers. Troy Utanu from Washington and Talisi Fuanga from Oregon State. They're top 20 players. Okay? Let's say they're gone. That's 7 players. If we include Tyler Guyton, who is in the top 25 on the big board. Now, let's take the top corners off. Terrion Arnold, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. They seem to be in a separate tier. We're 10 players already. Okay? Now, 4 quarterbacks are going to go. 3 receivers are going to go, and Brock Bowers. That's 18. 18 players that we are, at least for the purposes of this, pretty sure are going to go in 25. Okay? So now you've got 6 spots left. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Because the Packers pick at 25. The next 6 players, the best 6 players remaining on the Athletic consensus board, Dallas Turner, who we think is going to be a top 15 kind of pick. Jared Verse, could fall. Leatu Latu, pass rusher, he could fall. Byron Murphy, Brian Thomas Jr., Nate Wiggins. Well, if those 6 guys go, Nate Wiggins is that next tier of corner. Whether or not he's on the Packers board, I don't know, right? Because he's in the low 180s, but ran 4.2s. If they think he can get to 190 with the play style, what does that look like? Okay. That's 24 guys off the board. It's actually not a stretch at all. Like, if the consensus happens to be the way the top 24 picks play out, there will not be a first-round caliber corner by consensus in this draft for the Packers. There will not be a first-round caliber tackle available to the Packers. So here's the next group of guys. Chop Robinson, Graham Barton, Kool-Aid McKinstry, the corner from Alabama, Adonai Mitchell from Texas, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon. Now, Johnny Newton is the only guy from the top 24 picks on the board who is not picked in the scenario that we went with above. I don't think he was going to be a Packers type in any case. He's expected, he had a partial Jones fracture. He's expected to work out in April, which is now. We'll see if he does. I don't expect him to test well enough to be in the Packers' wheelhouse at 25. So then your options are Chop Robinson, an undersized edge, who I do like, but they just drafted Lucas Van Ness. They just extended Rashawn Gary. Is this where you want to allocate your resources? Maybe. And truly, maybe. Graham Barton is a guard or a center. Now, he is a 9.99 RAS at guard. He's got 32 and I believe 7/8 inch arms. For the Packers, you got to be 33. He's close enough that if you want to sell me, and Owen Reese, who does works with Eric Galco and they scout for the Shrine Bowl, has been saying on Twitter, just leave him at tackle. Played left tackle at Duke. This athletic profile says, just leave him at tackle. Let him fail. If he fails, fine, but let him fail at tackle first. And then do the experiment inside at center guard. Bet on that. That looks like a more appealing option right now because Kool-Aid McKinstry, an excellent man cover corner at Alabama, former 5-star recruit, former top high school recruit, but he's a Jones fracture in his foot. Did not do full testing at his pro day because he's playing through a Jones fracture and is going to need surgery. That's a pretty big unknown. They're not going to take Adonai Mitchell, and you don't take centers, true centers, Jackson Powers Johnson, in the first round. Now, Brian Gutekunst has been known to move around, to trade, to just be the kind of guy who goes outside the norm. So let's expand this a little bit. The next group of players, the next 10 guys, Ladd McConkey, receiver, not going to take him. Darius Robinson, not a good enough athlete, edge from Missouri. Bo Nix, not going to take a quarterback. Jordan Morgan, if you think he can stick a tackle, yes. If you don't, no. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., not athletic enough. Troy Franklin, not big enough. Kamari Lassiter, corner from Georgia, not athletic enough. Keon Coleman, the receiver from Florida State, I would do it. I don't think the Packers would. Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker from Texas A&M. My ears perk up there. And then Xavier Worthy, the receiver from Texas, probably not going to do that. I think we need to consider that Kool-Aid McKinstry, if they are satisfied with the profile, the tape says he's a better athlete than I think the testing. We're talking about a guy who walked into Alabama playing as a teenager, man-to-man cover skills. And then Adrian Cooper, the linebacker, Brian Gutekunst has shown he has a willingness to go and say, okay, well, we need a linebacker, so draft a linebacker. They did it with Quay Walker. Now, I think Quay Walker and Adrian Cooper probably have the best position overlap problem. But guess what? I think Cooper is a better prospect. I think he already does the things that they wanted Quay Walker to do better than Quay Walker. And so to me, Quay Walker is a sunk cost. I would let him sink or swim at Mike and go from there. But I think this also raises the questions about Barton. Can he play tackle? If you think he can play tackle, or you're going to let him at least be a swing tackle while he competes at right guard, probably worth 25. Same with Jordan Morgan, who is a perfect fit in this offense. As a guard, I can play either guard spot, can be a right tackle, probably not a left tackle. But the sort of nightmare scenario for the Packers in terms of not getting one of the elite corners and one of the elite tackles, which would be maximizing draft value in the first round. I've said I think the Packers can make it work, because I think that they have the roster to make it work, to bet on an elite athlete like Graham Barton or Jordan Morgan, because that's what they are. But it's not ideal. And I think the board is going to go crazy. But right now, the consensus is they're going to miss out. They're going to be on the wrong side of that cliff. Now, the way that this works is that's not going to be the case. One of those top corners or top tackles is going to be there, and the Packers are going to take Graham Barton or Adrian Cooper anyway, because that's just how this works, right? That's just how this always works. But is it worth it then? Is it worth it to move up or move down? What makes more sense in this case for the Packers? We're going to talk about it in just a second on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, as I look at this draft, what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, if you miss out on your chance to get one of these top corners or tackles early, is that a problem? I don't think it is a problem to not get the tackle. I think the tackle is a luxury, and it is absolutely something that would make sense for the Packers. If Tyler Guyton falls into your lap, one of those guys, Amarius Mims, JC Latham, someone like that, if they fall into your lap, draft them. Absolutely draft them. I don't think they need to seek it out. I think Rasheed Walker is a good enough player that you just go, if it works, great. But I don't have to do that. Now, the other side of this is they have extra draft capital. If you really like someone, go up and get them. So there's two sides to this coin. There is a clear fall off with this tackle group. It is this top group. It's the names that I mentioned. And then there's, some people really like Patrick Paul, who's got crazy length, really athletic. Fits the profile that you want athletically. Kieran Amagaji from Yale. Small school kid, like that's going to be a project. Roger Rosengarten from Washington, the guy that I took in the mock draft Monday. Athletic, but needs some work. Kingsley Suamatia from BYU. I think that there's something there. I think he played guard or tackle. But you're not then investing premium draft capital into that guy. They're 41. You're probably going to be able to get some of these guys by 58. You might be tapped out. That's getting tough. That's not true with the corner market. I really, really like the day 2 corners in this class. And I've said that, and it's only grown how much I like this group. From Kool-Aid McKinstry, who I think could be a first-round pick, TJ Tampa, who didn't run quite as fast as I thought he would at his pro day, but still at 6'2", 200, running low 4.5s. That's fine. Him at 41, like I've sort of given up on the idea that he makes sense at 25, but at 41, also really like Kyrie Jackson from Oregon. I think 58 is where you could start to see someone like Ennis Rakestraw Jr. make sense for the Packers. Not the elite athlete, but a better athlete than he tested at the combine, can play in the slot. Max Melton. Renardo Green from Florida State, someone I really like. One of the best man cover corners in college football last year. Gets overshadowed by his teammate because his teammate is a slot player and also has an elite RAS. Renardo Green's just a better player. Andrew Phillips from Kentucky. 5'11", 190, can play in the slot. I think he can play the boundary if you need him to. Late second round, early third round. Love that. He is the Mike Sainristil that the Packers might actually draft. In the third round, Cam Hart from Notre Dame. Big boundary corner. And then the other Missouri corner, Chris Abrams-Drain, I know he's skinny, but he's fast. He's a legit 5'11", so he probably can add some weight to his frame, can play in the slot. I really like those guys. And when you have faith in Carrington Valentine and Jair Alexander, then you have the backup plan, the insurance policy that is Eric Stokes, who can be a big-time player for you potentially. Like, I still think that's out there in the cards for him. You don't feel the same level of urgency then to get something like this done. So you don't have to trade up for a corner to get the guy that you want. You probably, if what you want is a tackle and you don't want to play Graham Barton at tackle, and I don't know if the Packers do or don't. I think the way that he tested makes you go, I'd at least give him a shot. I'd let him try. That gives you a little bit of pause. Jordan Morgan's a great fit, but we're talking about probably a guard. If those are the players that they like, when the tackles and the corners come off the board, the move is coming back. In my opinion, add draft capital. Is that a good outcome ultimately for the Packers? I don't think it is. That's the problem. And that's why this is hard. Because, yes, if you can't get a premium tackle or a premium corner at 25, to me, the move is move back. But for whomst? And then you're missing out on potentially the high-end talent. So when I talk about the historical part of this, and I say you shouldn't take interior offensive line early, like Elton Jenkins was pick 44. If you'd taken him at 29, he's not any more or less likely to hit. I'm just saying historically, teams have been bad at ordering these guys, so you should be a little less confident. And so ideally, you have an edge, a corner, a tackle, even a receiver that you like enough to take in the first round, and that makes this easier. You can feel more confident in that evaluation. That's just probably not going to be the situation that the Packers find themselves in. So there are a couple pieces here that they have to decide. How big a deal is the tackle thing? Do they feel like they need one? If they want to go all the way up and get one of these top guys, you want to move up and you see if you can get Joe Alt or Olu Fashanu. I think Olu is someone who, developmentally, Amarius Mims, developmentally, just take someone who's an absolute outlier, crazy person, athlete, big movement skills. You don't have to start right away. Rasheed Walker's there. Like, you're going to take all this draft capital. That kind of move up makes sense, but at what cost? Are you robbing yourself of the chance to get that linebacker that you need, that corner that you need? That's where this trade-off gets tricky, and that's where the answers here are not obvious to me. And part of that is I'm not in the room. I don't know what their evaluations are, and that's a big part of this. Like, if they think Graham Barton is a top 10, top 15 kind of player, and I don't think that's crazy, by the way, just take him. Just take him. But if they don't, I think there are going to be some options to move back. The more I've looked at this, though, I think there is a clear path forward for the Packers. And we're going to talk about it to close on today's show. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The sports calendar absolutely loaded right now, making it even more exciting to get in on the action. We had an incredible night of women's college basketball last night. Caitlin Clark absolutely torched LSU, who did not go down without a fight of their own. And I can't wait for the end of both of these tournaments, the men's side and the women's side. We're going to get an awesome finish. But the NBA, it's a playoff push. Baseball has started. There's prop bets for the NFL draft, depending on where you are. So you can basically right now, you can bet on every sport that exists, more or less. Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet the tourney. Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first big bet a big win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. I am not, generally speaking, the kind of guy who's going to say player X no matter what. It's a draft day thing, and it's a meme online. Like, I get it. Can you be a meme anywhere but online? I don't know. But to me, the player who, because of the versatility, because of the ball skills, because of the position that he plays and could potentially play, I am approaching Cooper DeJean no matter what. And the reason is he is the last of that top tier of corners. Ideal size. I think he can play the boundary for the Packers. Now that we know there's going to be a lot of, especially on early down zone coverage, and then on third downs and in the red zone, press man. He is not, Cooper, a perfect press man corner. But he's big and he's got terrific ball skills and instincts. He tackles. He's smart. He's a playmaker. They need more playmakers in this secondary. They need more guys who can make plays on the ball. It can't just be Jair Alexander. Now, you brought in Xavier McKinney. He can do that. You bring in Cooper, maybe he's a safety. Maybe he's a slot. Maybe he plays corner if you need him to. I would bring him in and say, if Carrington Valentine and Eric Stokes are healthy, you're playing safety. If they're not, you're playing corner. Get ready to learn all the spots, buddy. He might be the only player in this draft you could do that with. And then if you wanted to, there's, again, guys on day 2 I love. Big boundary corners, the for sure boundary corners like Kyrie Jackson and Cam Hart, or the slot guys. I really like Max Melton and Andrew Phillips in the slot for the Packers. Andrew Phillips might as well be Jair Alexander light. Like, he's almost the exact same size, almost the exact same physical profile, same sort of demeanor. Not quite as good, not quite as twitchy in coverage, but like crazy, a 97th percentile, broad jump and vertical jump. I mean, an outstanding athlete as his size will come up and stick you. Not a great tackler consistently, but I love those guys. Cooper doesn't have to play in the slot there. Safety, true safety, or boundary. That's fine. He's the guy to me. And I would go up if he's there at, let's say, 20. I know the Steelers need a corner, but they also really need help with their offensive line. This is a deep corner class. Can you get into like 19 with the Rams? Do they want to just add picks? Get up to 20, 21 with the Dolphins. Remember, the Dolphins were the team that the Packers traded up with for Jordan Love. Can you get ahead of Philadelphia, who would just love to throw Cooper DeJean in that defense? I am stopping short of saying no matter what. But when I look at what is available later, I think at 41, you can probably get one of Morgan. I don't think Barton is going to be there at 41. Frankly, I'm not even convinced he's going to be there at 25. But Morgan, Patrick Paul a little bit later. I think there's some really good guards in this class on day 2, guys like Mason McCormick, Cooper Beebe, Zach Zinter, who they had in for a visit, Christian Haynes, Tanner Bartolini. There are some interior guys. If you want a guard, you can get a guard on day 2, on day 3. The Packers do it all the time. I'm just not worried about that. Like, if what you feel like you need is a right guard or a center, I'm not worried about it. I'm not. You can find those guys. This is a very good interior offensive line class. A very good interior offensive line class. I'm not feeling like I have to stress about that. And if I am comfortable with Rasheed Walker. So if I want that true boundary guy, I think it's Cooper DeJean to me. And that's irrespective of the injury issues with Kool-Aid, who I think is a good player. I don't think he's of the caliber of the Terrion Arnold, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean group. And the only reason I don't mention those other 2 guys is I just think they're going to go too soon. If the Packers said, we want to get up to 15 and take Quinion Mitchell is the best corner in this class. We've talked about that trade up. Go do that. Done. But I also love the positional versatility of Cooper, and that's why I think, for me, he is the perfect Packers pick, because they can get the interior offensive line guys later. They can add corners later. They can add safeties later. You're not going to find someone that is a playmaker, ball skills, return ability. I can get an interception and turn it to a pick 6. Those are rare traits. And they can get that from Cooper. So, not quite Cooper DeJean no matter what, but we are inching ever closer. All right, back tomorrow. A lot more here on Locked On Packers. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. On Instagram, Locked On Packers. On TikTok, Locked On Packers. On YouTube, Locked On Packers. Go subscribe everywhere and anywhere you can to the podcast Locked On Packers so you can stay Locked On Packers.